The Green Bay Packers have a wide receiver paradox. They need to add some for 2027, but they don't have room for them right now.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Today on the show, we're going to talk about the Devon Achane market apparently being closed. We're going to talk about what the offseason tells us about where the Packers think they are. But let's start with the wide receiver paradox. Because as we discussed yesterday, the Packers only have 2 receivers under contract in 2027. And I don't know if you know this, but you can't play football with 2 receivers in the NFL anymore. Like, it just doesn't work like that. So they need bodies. The problem with that is, right now, they don't have any room for bodies. Right now, under contract, they have Christian Watson, Jayden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Matthew Golden, Savion Williams, Sky Moore, Bo Melton. There's already 7 receivers on this football team. Now, Bo Melton, not, cost-wise, not an impediment here. But you actually brought in Sky Moore. You paid money. You guaranteed money for him. It's not the original contract that was put out there, but there's guaranteed money in this deal that suggests he's being brought to Green Bay to be the starting returner, kicks and punts. That's the whole point. So he is your special teams guy. None of your other receivers are going to be able to do that. You need to build your receiver room for the future because you just don't have, if you sign Christian Watson, that makes it a little bit easier. And if you think Christian Watson is a legit number 1 receiver, you believe in Matthew Golden as the future here in Green Bay, then maybe you can justify saying, roll with it. Don't draft anybody. Maybe you find an undrafted free agent who you can stash on the practice squad and you go from there. And then in the 2027 offseason, you've got money to play with. You've got draft picks to use. And, I guess you try it that way. But again, they don't have a first round pick in 2027 either. Not that they would use another first round pick on a receiver, but at least it would have been an option. And it certainly would have been an option to address other positions that now could get pushed down the list. And so you probably know where I'm going with this, but this is all the more reason. I think the most likely outcome here for the Packers is one of these receivers. Jayden Reed, Dontavian Wicks will not be a Packer when the Packers break camp in August. They just can't keep everyone and have a viable path to the future. And I understand all of the complaints and the cautions and the criticisms of like, hey, we've seen this team think they have enough receivers before, and it turns out you could have one of those injury avalanche seasons, and all of a sudden you need all of those guys. Last year, 9 receivers played for the Packers. Now, part of that is they did have an avalanche of injuries. They had the carryover injury of Christian Watson. Dontavian Wicks got hurt in training camp. Jayden Reed broke his collarbone in week 2. And then Matthew Golden and Savion Williams dealt with injuries over the course of the season. So they needed all of their receivers on this team. But now Romeo Doubs is out the door. This is part of the conversations about, are they better? You don't have Malik Heath anymore. You have to elevate Matthew Golden at this point. Christian Watson, we'll see about his health, but guys, they need bodies. They need bodies for 2027. which means they need to make the space for those guys now. You can't rely on practice squad development. You can't rely on rookies in 2027. 2027 is supposed to be the cherry on the cake. You got the whipped cream and the icing and all the good stuff, and then that's supposed to be like you're supposed to be the defending Super Bowl champions by 2027. You've got a 3-year runway with this core. Last year was year 1. This is year 2. You can't be counting on rookies in year 3 when it is gotta have it make or break kind of stuff. Now, I don't think it's necessarily make or break for Brian Gutekunst. I think that's much more a Matt LaFleur problem. But when you only have one cornerback under contract in 2027, it would be nice in this draft and next draft to draft some. If you've got to replenish your wide receiver room, you've got a problem. You've got a problem. So even if it's just a 4th or a 5th round pick this year, you need to have someone with real ability. Now, they've done a good job finding receivers in the middle rounds. Romeo Doubs was a 4th. Dontavian Wicks, a day 3 pick. Jaden Reed, they traded down multiple times on day 2 and still drafted. And those guys aren't going to change your life. None of those guys were star receivers. But they've all been useful, impactful players for this Packers team. That's what they need. If they believe in Christian Watson, Matthew Golden as the core of your receiver room, plus remember Tucker Kraft is, probably your A player in the passing game anyway, then it could be as simple as a day 3 pick that you're hoping to get, Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks level play out of. And I understand, look, a day 3 pick could be anything. They could even be as good as Jaden Reed or Dontavian Wicks. But that calculation goes out the window when you have to pay Jaden Reed or Dontavian Wicks. What you'd rather do is take a couple shots at it, hope you find someone that gives you that level of play on a rookie contract. Because then you don't have to sign them to $15, $17, $20, $22 million a year. Not that I think someone like Dontavian Wicks is going to get that or Jaden Reed is going to get that. I said yesterday, I think that $15 million for Jaden Reed, if Jaden Reed has the same season as Romeo Doubs had last year, he'll get the Romeo Doubs contract. I know he's a slot-only player, but he's an explosive player. His highlight reel is as good as anyone's at yards after catch stuff, at vertical stuff, like a lot of the stuff that every offense in the NFL is looking for. Jaden Reed can do at a high level, and Dontavian Wicks as a route runner. There are going to be teams out there that go, we need that. And again, this is why the Miami destination just makes so much sense. They do not have NFL players in their receiver room, but they are not alone in the NFL in having a receiver room that is bereft of talent. There are a handful of teams around the league that could be calling. Now, if it were me, I'd be trying to fight for player because draft picks don't help the Packers win Super Bowls this year. But you do have to plan for the long-term health of your organization. And so it may mean taking a small step back at the position depth-wise this year so that you can ensure the health of the position more long-term in 2027 and beyond. And if Matthew Golden is the player you think he is, and if Christian Watson is the player you think he is, and if Savion Williams is the player you think he is, and if Tucker Kraft comes back healthy, that's a lot of ifs, but if, then I think that's a reasonable plan. And I think there's a good chance that's exactly where the Packers find themselves right now. But they haven't done anything. Not anything big. They've let a lot of guys go. What does that tell us about what the Packers think about this team, where they see themselves right now in Green Bay? We'll talk about that next. College basketball is nonstop, and it's about to get even crazier. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night, from early tip-offs to late night shootouts. There's always action on the board, and the next, 4 days is going to be insanity. And now FanDuel is going to give you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. Mix spreads, totals, player props to match how you see the slate playing out. then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Go safe, go bold. You want to pick a 2 seed? You want to pick a 15 seed? Maybe you want to pick one of each, preferably not in the same game. Go safe, go bold. Ride the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action, so when momentum swings, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. There's still time to get on the March bracket pool. NCAA tournament tips off today. If you're listening to this before, about noon, you're in a good position to get yourself in this tournament challenge that we've got going on here. But you still get March free with the code MARCH at LockedOnPackers.supercast.com. That month free of the Everydayer Club gets you ad-free access to Locked On Packers, plus the Discord server, the group chat, as it were, plus you get to come hang out with us in the men's and women's tournament bracket pools. As a member of the club, you get to be one of the cool kids. LockedOnPackers.supercast.com or click the link in show notes for more. Moves tell us where teams think they are. And Brian Gutekunst was not lying when he said he thinks this team is good enough to win the Super Bowl. Because they did not go out and make any desperate moves. They did not go out and make any big splashes. They did not go out and dangle first or second round picks or anything like that. They don't have future picks to dangle. They really have to push that future first out. They said they wanted to add competition at corner, at linebacker. They did that. But one of the first things Brian Gutekunst said in the offseason, not the postmortem, but the offseason, was the team is good enough. And they believed they were good enough last year, even without Tucker Kraft, Zach Tom, and Micah Parsons. And that's because they should have beat the Bears. And the Bears gave the Rams everything they could handle. And the Rams gave the Seahawks everything they could handle. I know the transitive property does not quite exist in sports with the Packers. I don't think without Kraft, Parsons, or Tom, they would have had, an easy time with the Seahawks, certainly. But even then, they could have played well enough to win that game. This offseason tells us that the Packers believed and still believe that they are good enough to win and that they don't need to do the desperate thing that Baltimore needed to do in trade for Max Crosby. Last year, that is a tacit admission. We didn't think we were good enough. Now, you get an opportunity to trade for a player like Micah Parsons, and you do it. Micah Parsons is one of those few players that if you get a chance to trade for that guy, you just have to take it. If he wants to go play for you, come on down, Micah. You can come play. But you also take the risk and you give up the assets, you give up the draft capital because you believe it's worth it, because you believe it gets you to where you want to go, A, and B, that you were unlikely to get there without it. That's what the capital cost implies. You are only willing to pay the cost if achieving your goals would not have been anywhere near as likely in the case of not making the trade. So you go out and you add Benjamin St-Juste and you add Zaire Franklin and you add Javon Hargrave. None of those guys are changing your life. But what the Packers are telling us is They don't think they need their lives changed. We talked about this on the squad show earlier this week. And I went back and I looked at 2021. That was the spring after they had gone 13 wins 2 years in a row, gone to the NFC Championship two years in a row. And their offseason was basically Dennis Kelly. That was their big addition, was Dennis Kelly. Now they ended up trading for Randall Cobb, but that's a direct, like, Aaron Rodgers thing. He demanded that. But like, that was what they did. They didn't do anything that interesting. Their big move the year before in free agency, like all of the moves they tried didn't really work. It's just like flyers and little, here's 4 million, here's 5 million. The one that made the most impact, Rick Wagner. This is a team that is like those 2020, 2021 teams. That is how they view them. You're just some tweaks, some depth, some little pieces, some internal development, and your best guys have to not only be healthy, but play their best when their best is needed in January. That's what the Packers are telling us they believe about their football team right now. They've not even really been involved in rumors about signing big name players or trading for big name players. Usually they're at least like being used as leverage. That wasn't even the case this time. And it's because they bring back Tucker Kraft. It's almost like a free agent addition. They'll bring back Zach Tom. At what capacity? I don't know. And when will he be 100%? I don't know. All that matters really is that they get to January and he's healthy then. They'll bring back Micah Parsons. If you look at this team versus what they were in January, and we think about where they'll be in October, it's like night and day difference because of the top end talent that they stand to regain. I mean, elite players. Micah Parsons, the second best defensive player in the NFL. At least the second best pass rusher. I think you can make a Pat Surtain case. And Tucker Kraft was the best tight end in the NFL last year. That's not hyperbole. That's not homerism. I told you the other day that the guys on the Ringer Athletic Show, the Ringer Football Show compared him to Rob Gronkowski and said they thought he was the best tight end in football too before he got hurt. Doesn't mean they're right. I'm just saying that's not just some crazy homer hyperbole take. That's kind of the normie take, is that he was one of the, at the very least, a top 3 tight end last year. He was incredible. And if he can come back 80-85% of that guy, this team has got enough. This team has got enough. Now, okay, that's true. But also, you know who would be really good on this team is De'Von Achane. The problem for the Packers is that, according to the reports yesterday, he's not on the trade block. Counterpoint to the counterpoint. I don't buy it. I don't buy it because it doesn't make sense for the Miami Dolphins, and methinks they doth protest too much. I'll explain what I mean next. Welcome to the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft. With 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy, there's something new for everyone. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and I've got my number one pick for the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft. And it's the same as it always was. Hawaiian Breeze is my top selection. Feel the breeze, taste the caffeine. Made with passion fruit, orange, and guava flavors. It's sweet, yet smooth, tangy, yet tart. I want to be transported to a beach, especially right now when we got fake spring and now it's cold again. And all I want is the warmth. I want the heat. I want to feel that tropical vibe. Hawaiian Breeze is my jam, my absolute jam. Find your new favorite flavor of 5-Hour Energy shots, available online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. After having a fire sale this offseason, the Miami Dolphins are apparently drawing the line at De'Von Achane, which does not make any sense, which is why The reporting around it from Adam Schefter does not pass the sniff test to me. Now, moving on from Tyreek Hill at the cost makes sense. Trading Jalen Waddle when you can get a first and a third with a fourth round pick swap in there that is no-brainer business. That is a great piece of business for the Miami Dolphins. And having to eat the contract of Tua Tagovailoa was a necessity. They needed to get out from underneath that albatross. But all the more reason for them to not plan on paying a running back on what will be inevitably a bad team. And I understand, I saw some of the soothsaying on the beat in Miami going, hey, when John Eric Sullivan was talking about the core of the team, he brought up De'Von Achane and, on and on, but didn't bring up Jalen Waddle. Waddle's now gone. I don't think any of that stuff is relevant. I really don't. And I know the Packers front office in Green Bay value running backs more than maybe the modern wisdom. We don't really know what John Eric Sullivan's position is on that. But certainly their track record says that they value that position. But do they value it at that level? Like at the Derrick Henry level? At the Christian McCaffrey level? At the Saquon Barkley level? Is that what Devon Achane is going to command? I don't know. And I do think it matters what Devon Achane wants. If he wants to stay in Miami and take some 3-year, $33 million deal, he could do that. I don't know why a running back in this day and age would want to do that. That just seems insane to me for an agent to advise you to take a deal like that, but ultimately it's the player's call. But I think all of teams have been calling, but he's not available. Let's just think for a second, shall we? Why would that come out a day after Jalen Waddle gets traded? Let's just game this out. What possible value would a team have? Let's say the Eagles wanted De'Von Achane. Why would the Eagles leak that to Adam Schefter? Why? Why would they say, hey, we called Miami, but he's not available? Why would they do that? For what? For what benefit? That doesn't really benefit them. And if you're Devon Achane, if you're his agent, it also doesn't really benefit you to leak that. Like, I suppose it shows Miami's commitment to him. But if it weren't true, let's say, Miami knows that. And it doesn't help them in contract negotiations in any way. So I don't understand why they would do it. The only actor that makes sense to have leaked this information to Adam Schefter, who is not exactly, he does at this point, he is so well connected. He doesn't exactly have to do Woodward and Birdstein reporting to get this information. It's a couple texts, it's a couple phone calls. And I understand years and years and years of equity built into that. So I don't want to, denigrate that part of it. But the reason you text that to Schefter, or you call that to Schefter, or you email that to Schefter, how you signal it, I don't know what teams are doing, is to say up your offers. Yeah, people have been calling. But people have been calling. I believe people have been calling. My understanding of it independently is that people have been calling. And if that's the case, if you're the Dolphins, you want everyone to know that that's the case. Hey, guys, people are calling. You're not the only one. Hey, Packers, you're not the only team calling. I heard from Dallas. We heard from Philadelphia. We heard from, whatever. I'm just throwing names out there. You want everyone to know he is not available, which is another way of saying give us more draft compensation. It's another way of saying your offers to date have not been good enough. And he's very desirable on the market. Everyone wants him. So if you want him, you're going to have to pay up. Now, maybe the Packers will, maybe the Packers won't. And maybe the Dolphins will and maybe the Dolphins won't. Maybe there's not a deal out there. Maybe the appetite for him is not. Maybe it's one of those things where like everyone wants De'Von Achane for, a 4th round pick or a 3rd round pick, let's say. But the Dolphins only want to give him up if they can get a 2nd round pick. Like there are sometimes markets that work like that, where you have a product that is highly desirable to a lot of people at a certain cost, but once that cost is above X, it is no longer desirable. That the appetite for that product, that thing, wanes. I'm sure there is a fancy economic term for that. I'm sure of it. And I apologize to Mr. Hessler, who my high school economics teacher, for not having that ready to go off the tip of my tongue. Oh, I'm going to get messages about that one. But that could be what the Devon Achane market is like. That like, yeah, everyone would be willing to give up a 4th, but like, well, it's a 2nd. Okay, well then he's not getting traded. And then it's like, okay, well, don't threaten me with a good time then. Like I'm not doing a bad deal. So just because everyone wants him at X does not mean if I'm the Dolphins, I have to accept X if I think he's worth Y. But if I'm one of the teams offering X, I certainly am well within my rights to go, well, I'm not offering Y either. So either you trade him because it makes sense to trade him, or keep him and it's your problem. And then you get to let him walk and you have to sell that to your fan base. That's the other part of this, is there is a PR problem that the Dolphins have already torn this down to the studs. And I joked like beyond the studs. This is like a full teardown. They raised the building. You have this one fung young player left, on offense at least. And you're going to let him play out the string on a bad team and then let him walk for nothing but a comp pick? That doesn't seem like good team management. At this point, trade him too. You've got some backup running backs that you've used draft capital on. I know it wasn't this administration, but you've got some pedigree backs back there. Just let it ride with this. And then at least you get to say, hey, we got the picks. We are loaded with picks 2026. Let's do this. And then by 2027, you go, hey, a lot of guys in year 2. Now you can sell that as we're building something. And yeah, it stinks that De'Von Achane is going to go win a Super Bowl in Green Bay, but it is what it is. He wasn't going to win a Super Bowl in Miami. So we had to do what we had to do. And I think that is a totally reasonable thing for them to do. And I'm not just saying that because I think it makes sense for the Packers to trade Achane. I'm saying it because like if I were in the same position, I would be saying, we got to trade this guy. I'm not paying him $15 million a year. But as we talked about, $15 million a year is just a Jaden Reed level receiver. So that's part of this calculation too. And maybe if you're the Dolphins, you're going, hey, we'd rather have the good player at his position. We'd rather have the top 5 running back or the top 8 running back or whatever you think he is. He's certainly higher on the running back hierarchy than Jaden Reed is on the receiver hierarchy or Dontavian Wicks is. And so for the same price, we'd rather have the really good player relative to his peers and just pay it. They're going to have the money eventually. I think that's a reasonable thing to do. I just kind of don't believe that that's what they're doing because I don't think that makes as much sense as the alternative. And again, I think the Packers should effort to benefit from that. We'll see if they can actually make that work. All right, back tomorrow. Our first prospect series is up. Goodies guys, baby. Chris Johnson is out now in your podcast feed. We will have another one out tomorrow. I wanted to start with Kristen Miller, but we did not get information from Georgia's Pro Day, which was earlier this week. And so I'm waiting on that because I want him to have a full athletic profile if he has one. I didn't even see reporting on the workouts. So, it's difficult to make that assessment right now. That's true for some of the other defensive tackles So we may have to go with some of these corners that have more full athletic profiles, some of these tight ends that have more full athletic profiles, because the Packers in the top 50 don't draft guys without athletic profiles. So that's part of the deal. You're going to have an athletic profile to be drafted by the Green Bay Packers, at least early. And for them, 52 is early because they don't have a first round pick. So we're back tomorrow. Follow me on all the social medias. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe on iTunes. Okay, Apple Podcasts. Threw that in there just for Brandon. Subscribe on YouTube, where we got the Squad Show coming twice a week. We're also going to have video forms of the Goodies Guys mini series that we're going to do. We're going to try and do 25, 30 of those between now and the draft. So we got a ton of prospects we're going to hit. And so help you learn a little bit more about these guys, what they are, who they are, what they can be for the Packers. That is there always for you, so you can stay locked on Packers.